Hello, hello, and welcome to the Beautifully Aligned podcast, the podcast for the woman who wants to live her most beautifully aligned life. Today, we are talking about values, and I have been so excited to discuss values because this is a big topic that informs literally everything in our lives, from our relationships to work to parenting to the products that we buy. Like literally, the toilet paper that you are using is influenced by your values. And I am just going to dip my toe into the water in regards to values today. And I will for sure do some more episodes on values, but I wanted to kind of do an introduction, if you will, if you have never really thought about what your core values are. What really inspired this episode today is the fact that I am working in a program right now called Values to Wellbeing, where I am learning how to work with my coaching clients to uncover their core versus acquired values. And it is quite a process. It is so fascinating, and I get to see my clients step into their self-exploration process and really learning about who they are, what their core values are, what their acquired values are, and choosing to adopt their core values versus acquired values. I have also been working with the coach that is training me through this program on discovering what mine truly are, and it is just mind-blowing. It's life-changing. Our values really inform everything, like I mentioned at the very beginning of this episode. So I'm so excited. I am just bursting at the seams, and there's so much that we could go into, and I will for sure do more episodes on values, but I wanted to bring this up if you are in the process of discovering what your values are, or maybe you've never even thought about it, and this will be a great intro for you. Okay, so let's go. First things first, what are values in the first place? I am reading from my coaching manual here. So, in scientific literature, a value is defined as a desirable goal that serves as a guiding principle in life and defines how we assess behaviors, events, others, and ourselves. We define it simply as our perception of what matters most in life. A value is something we feel strongly driven to, and it determines why we actually want to be or have certain things. And values are so powerful because they influence the way that we approach everything, which is something I just talked about. So, education, work, problem solving, relationships, parenting, the products that we're buying, the products that we're using, the food that we're eating, it informs everything. And with enough awareness, we can trace literally every decision that we're making in our lives, from who you marry, so those really big decisions, down to the toothpaste that you're buying. And we can trace those to a value that we hold and the beliefs that we have about that specific value. So, core values versus acquired values. What's the difference? So, core values are the ones that we want to live our lives in accordance to. And the best way to figure out if you are living in your core versus acquired values is look at your life. Where are you living in alignment? What brings you joy in the things that you're doing? If you ask yourself those questions, and you think of the ways in which you are living joyfully and in alignment, you are probably living to your core values. And our acquired values, on the other hand, are the values that are influenced upon us by society, by history, by where we live, by our parents, schools, the ones that we feel we should have. And when we're living in our acquired values, stress comes up, negativity comes up, lack of purpose, lack of fulfillment, basically the opposite of living joyfully and in alignment. So sometimes these can butt heads with each other. And in the program that I mentioned that I'm personally going through right now, that I'm also working with my clients on when they're discovering their values is how can we make sure that we're being conscious of which values are coming up. Sometimes we have to live in or we choose rather than have, we choose to live with doing something in accordance to our acquired values for a period of time because that is what is serving us at this time. And I'll get into that a little bit more, but that's the difference between core versus acquired values. In your core values, there should be no resistance. When you're living in your core values, things are flowing for you. Many times they're easier, there's less resistance. So really pay attention in your life to where maybe there's some resistance coming up and think, could this be an acquired value? Did this come from my mom, my dad, a teacher, whatever? Where is this coming from? So I'm going to share a story about a time when my core versus acquired values were colliding. It was not fun. It was stressful. And this is kind of a big issue that I'm going to share that maybe you've gone through or maybe you're going through it now. But I want to share this big issue because it just makes it that much more obvious. There are absolutely instances where there are smaller issues or smaller situations that might be happening where your core versus acquired values are at conflict. But for the sake of this episode, I'm going to share this big story. So one of my core values is freedom, and I want to set the stage with that as I tell you this story. So for many years, I was working in a corporate job, or jobs, plural, until several months ago. And when I had my daughter, Zyla, I really, after my maternity leave was over, I really felt stressed, unfulfilled, just basically conflict inside of me, stress, major stress as well. And what it was I wanted the freedom to dictate my schedule, to decide when I was going to spend time with her, when I was going to work, all of the things, when I wanted to go to personal appointments, but I couldn't because I was in a corporate job. And it was a work from home job, at least at the end. And while that was fabulous in so many ways, it was still limiting on my core value of freedom because I still had to attend meetings. I still had to be on call. I still had to do my job during a set time period between certain hours. And so it was really forcing me to just wake up and see the light and go through a self-exploration process of discovering my values and working with a coach to really determine that corporate life and working for somebody else was not for me. It does not align with my values in any way, shape, or form. Number one, with my core value being freedom. To be fair, there were other core values in my role as a working mom, but they didn't pertain specifically to that job or being in corporate, but they did pertain to working. So I prioritized things and I made the choice to leave, which I have talked about on this podcast episode. I think it was number 1 or 2 of this podcast. So if you want to hear about that, go ahead and listen. But it was just not in alignment with what brought me joy in freedom to stay in my corporate job. And let me just say, it was not easy. Living to our true values is sometimes not easy. Sometimes we have to step back, figure out what values are in conflict, prioritize them, think about how they cause us to react and how we can make choices and really become aware and conscious, because that is key when we're living in accordance to our values. I know I talked about what core versus acquired values are, but I want to go a little bit deeper here because one of the biggest hurdles that I have faced with my coaching clients is that when I bring up the idea of values, many people aren't really sure what values even mean, and they fall back on religious beliefs or just beliefs in general, or the values that their families passed on to them. And ding, 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 you might be thinking, those are acquired. Sometimes the values that our families talk to us about and drive home are our core values, but that is not always, I wanted to say usually, but not always the case. Another quick thing that I have noticed about people, including myself, when I was living in my acquired versus my core values, and I've noticed this with clients too, is that without the guiding principle of your living into your core values, you become lost. Like, what is my purpose here to be fulfilled? You can kind of become like a chameleon and change the way you talk, the way you think, the way you behave in accordance to what other people expect of you or what you think other people expect of you. Most often that's with family or work, or say you go to a party or something and the people at that party have a certain expectation. And so you change the way that you're behaving to make them feel more comfortable. So you might have noticed people in your life doing this. I have done this myself. I raise my hand and admit it. But when we are living in our core values, it's like you're putting on a superwoman cape and you are standing in your power and you are you unapologetically because you know you're living in alignment with your true self. And your core values are totally unique to you. And we usually have to dive pretty deep to discover what they are. Let's get into the fun part with starting to uncover your core values. And uncovering them can be kind of strange sometimes. And when I ask clients what matters most to them, sometimes they might say family or relationships or a relationship with this person. But in reality, those are the categories that your values actually fall under. So say somebody says that their value is, or one of their values is family. We have to go a little bit deeper. What matters most to you when it comes to family? Is it you being present with them? Is it about honesty? Is it about compassion, being loyal, being appreciated or appreciating them, trustworthiness? What about family is it that matters most to you? And that's where you start to uncover your true values. I want to mention here that sometimes it can be hard to determine what our values are. And so I am linking you to a list of common values that you can look at, try them on, see if they make sense for you. That's another tip that I have for you, is to just look at a list and really tap into the words that these values hold and think about if they ring true to you. So I will link that in the show notes. I will link it on YouTube if you're watching this on YouTube. So as you are thinking about these core values, you can reference this list. I have a list of questions that I am going to read to you to ask yourself, and in answering them, hopefully you will start to really notice what your core values might be. And I will also list these questions in the show notes so that you can copy and paste. You can journal them out if you want to, whatever's easiest for you. Okay, they are 7 questions. First question is, how do you define yourself? So what are some attributes about yourself, about your personality that first come up when you hear that question? That's number 1. Number 2, what do you need to feel accomplished in life? Maybe it's success is the first thing that comes to your mind. Success in your job, whatever that looks like for you. What do you need to feel accomplished in life? For me, it was having freedom. And I talked about that at the beginning of the episode. So I went through all of these as well in my values coaching program. Okay, number 3, what are your thoughts and feelings in important relationships and situations? This could go in so many different ways. answer it in the way that feels true for you. Number 4, what human attributes, behaviors, and conditions do you find most negative? So with this one, it's kind of like a double whammy because it's asking what attributes, behaviors, and conditions you find most negative, which can lead to us thinking about our acquired values. And maybe you behave in these negative ways, or you portray some of these attributes, or you behave in certain ways and they're negative to you, but you're still doing them. So start to kind of make this connection and think about what your acquired values might be in accordance to this question. Or maybe you're thinking about other people and how they act and it's negative to you, and that could bring up the opposite of what that value they're living to that you don't appreciate or you don't like, and maybe it's one of your core values. So this could go in so many different ways, but it's fascinating. So that's number 4. Number 5, how do others see your most important values? So how are you acting on your values in everyday situations, in your relationships, at work? What values do other people see? Number 6, how do you spend your time and resources? So this is a big one, and I use a calendar, it's like a grid calendar that I use with many of my clients, and it's hour by hour, and I have them fill it out and list out literally every single thing that they are doing to look at their time, how they're spending their time and their resources. And then we go into basically a data analysis and figure out if they are living their days in accordance to their values. And sometimes we're not. And that's, again, where the stress is coming up and where the acquired values are coming in. So I really encourage you to write down, maybe for a couple of days, what or how am I spending my time hour by hour? And I recommend doing this on not a holiday, because usually on a holiday or a weekend, if you're not working, it's a time of relaxation. And that's another thing. How are you spending your time on those days will bring up your core values. So anyway, I encourage you to do this on a work day or a regular day for you. I encourage you to do this on a weekend as well. Compare the two, see what comes up for you. Question number 7, last question, is what human attributes, behaviors, and conditions do you value? So what are the attributes and behaviors of other people in your life that you value, that you really appreciate? What is it about this person that you find is attractive, easy to be around? What is it about that person? What behaviors do they possess that make them a person you want to spend time with? We talked about this at the very beginning of this episode, but this tip is huge when you're thinking about what your values are. So think of times where you were truly joyful and lean into that emotion. What was happening in that situation or in that moment? For me, one of the moments that I think back to is, it was years ago, maybe 5 years ago, and I was on vacation from my corporate job. I was about to go on a trip, the freedom core values coming up here. And I was in my car blasting music, just felt so free. I was not thinking about going back to my shackles. Oh my gosh, it sounds so bad. Mentally, yeah, it did feel like shackles, and I was just chained to that job. And I'm sure many of you have had that situation, but I was not thinking about it. I was just happy, free, and singing in my car, just no cares in the world. And when we are joyful, it's usually because we're living in alignment to our values. So that was just a tiny moment in time where it was so apparent that freedom is one of my core values. And pain in our life can also be an indicator of our acquired values. So if you want to think about a time that was stressful, maybe you felt sad, angry, guilty, what was happening in those situations? Usually in those situations, we were living in our acquired values. So once you know what your core values are, or at least some of them, ideally you will have about 10 core values, sometimes more than that. And having more is awesome. So when you decide that you want to start consciously living in your core values, it can feel kind of clunky, kind of awkward. And you have to make a conscious choice to do this. And I recommend a method called the BOLD method, which I'm going to teach you right now. I did not invent the BOLD method. It's a psychology method that I actually learned in school. And it stands for breathe. So first, you're just going to take a breath, observe like what's happening, listen to your values, and then decide on an action. So that's BOLD. That's what BOLD stands for. And like I said, this can feel really awkward at first, but in a way, we really have to reprogram our minds and go through this BOLD method to start thinking this way. A quick note about acquired values, because I've majorly shit talked them today, is that sometimes in certain situations at certain times in our life, we have to put on the cloak of an acquired value to whether it's to get something done or to go through a certain situation. Everything is unique to us. Every situation is unique. Sometimes we put those on, but we are conscious of it. And we say to ourselves, I am going to live in accordance to this acquired value that I have, because it is going to help me get through XYZ situation. And that is perfectly fine and perfectly normal. So I just wanted to say that. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that I am launching a group coaching program, and I didn't have a name for it then. I do now, and it is Creme de la Creme. I love it. Do you love it? I hope you do. So it's Creme de la Creme because it is the best of the best. It is all encompassing. And yes, we go deep, 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 deep into discovering your core versus your acquired values. You will know the difference. You will be able to try on your core values, live in accordance with them, unlock your limitless potential, and design your life. So we're really doing a self-exploration, discovering your purpose, doing the work. And that is why I called it Creme de la Creme, because it is the best of the best. It is what I work with my one-on-one clients with when they want to go through a really deep dive of self-exploration and co-creating their dream lives. Creme de la Creme. I just can't help but smile when I say that. I love the name. It is like I said, a group coaching experience. It is 12 weeks long. So we will meet every single week for an hour. This program starts in October. And if you're interested, I'm not just going to slap up a product page where you can buy it, because this is an intimate, safe space for this group program, and I want to keep it small. So what I am doing is I am linking a Google form where you will just leave your name and answer just a couple of questions. If you are interested in joining, there is absolutely no pressure. If you fill it out and you decide, no, I don't want to do this, but fill out the form if you are interested, and I will be screening who joins this program. So it will be a safe, intimate space. If you have questions, I am more than happy to chat with you about specifically what is involved in the program. Week by week, I will also list out some details in the show notes so that you know what you're getting. But I am so excited, and this is something that I work with my self-exploration and life purpose clients on one-on-one, and it brings me so much joy. And so it was only natural for me to have this be my very first coaching program, because I truly believe in it. I've seen the transformation in myself and with my clients. So that is that. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you did, I would be so grateful if you shared it with someone who you think would enjoy it as well. And with that, I will chat with you next week.